and welcome to episode 24 of Tales from the Bargain Bin. I'm Bill Tucker, and today we have an exceptional guest on the show, a guest who hasn't been on the show for quite some time. Well, he's been on the Final Fantasy stuff extensively, so I shouldn't say that. But I don't think he's done one of these in a while, if ever. The one and only Julian Titus from the Stage Select podcast. What's going on, man?
Oh, I'm blushing. It's such a nice intro.
I try to go as over the top as possible. Then that way, if people like leave after the first minute, they've already hit the peak. That's they've hit the best part of this. So I've already got your click. So hey, it works all the way around. Man, we are here to talk about Demon's Crest.
Yes.
The Capcom game from 1994, late in the Super Nintendo life cycle. And so why did you have me play Demon's Crest? What's your history with it? What's the story?
Yeah, you reached out and asked if I wanted to come on a Bargain Bin episode, and there's actually fairly few games that I picked up from an actual bargain bin, right. Mainly because, I spent so much time in gaming retail and stuff like that. So I wouldn't really, I wouldn't call like grabbing a steal on a trade-in, at my store like a bargain bin situation. But this is a game that I actually got from a bargain bin. I remember it very distinctly because we've talked about this in the past, but raised Jehovah's Witness. So, birthdays were out, Christmas was out. So it wasn't like I was getting those, kind of guaranteed 2 games a year, like, a lot of people in your audience and a lot of your other guests have talked about in the past. Right. So I was always like pretty, like we rented a lot and it was pretty rare that I would get a game. And I was very like I could almost count them on one hand, like the new games that I, got my mom to purchase for me.
Sure.
But I remember this very distinctly because we were at Target and there was an actual like bargain bin. And she let me pick the games were like $20 in that bargain bin.
Wow.
Which that's super cheap for, like back then.
Yes.
That like for cartridge games, that didn't happen very often.
No, it did not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
once you got to like PlayStation 1 and PS2, like $20 games were like just all over the place. Like
yes, correct.
Super easy to come by, but not for like Super Nintendo and Genesis stuff.
No way. Once CDs made games much more affordable, but they're actually, I wouldn't say much more affordable. They're much more discountable. You know what I mean? Like they're much more discountable. They were still $60, but at least they would go down to a couple bucks in a bargain bin. You're right. Cartridges were not like that. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So they were $20 a pop, and so I got to get 2, which was crazy, because it was still cheaper than buying a brand new release, right? Because those were going to be like $60, $70, $80 depending on what game we're talking about at that time. And so I picked up True Lies for Super Nintendo and Demon's Crest for Super Nintendo. True Lies, I think that one was more of like if I can get 2, this one looks kind of cool type of thing.
Right.
But Demon's Crest was like right up my alley because I loved Gargoyle's Quest for the Game Boy.
Yes.
Loved it.
Great game. Great game.
I don't think that I had played. No, I take that back. I think I had rented Gargoyle's Quest 2 for the Nintendo, but I think I only got to rent it once. That's also a pretty rare game.
Is it? Okay.
Gargoyle's Quest 2 came out also kind of late in the NES lifespan. And then Demon's Crest, which is the third in the series, which, it's weird that they changed the name. And I'm honestly, kind of surprised that I got away with it now that I think about it. It had Demon right in the name.
I was thinking that was one of my questions I had queued up in my brain, because I do remember your background. You came from a very religious family. I am surprised your mom or your parents were okay with this demon on the cover. Very devilish.
Yeah. I'm wondering if I pitched it to her that, no, I've played this before, but it was called Gargoyle's Quest. He's a gargoyle.
Oh,
I'm wondering if that's what, like, I wonder if we had a conversation like that, because that would make sense.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah. But yeah, now I think about it, like I don't know how that happened, but no, got to go home with those 2 games.
Sweet.
Both good games. One very, very far away better than the other. Which is why we're here.
I've never played True Lies on the SNES, right?
Super Nintendo.
I've never played True Lies, but I do know this game has a following, and I this is one of those games that popped up on NSO, right? Like when the Super Nintendo, it's available to play on the Switch now, and I saw, I'm like, ooh, I remember that game from Nintendo Power. That game looked really cool, and then I kind of forgot about it, like everything else in my life. And I then, when you brought this up, I was like, oh, I know that game. This will be fun. This is a really good game. Like,
it's
this
excellent.
Is really quality game. Obviously, Capcom. You know, we know. As soon as the Capcom sound in the beginning, I was just like, oh, just wrap me up in this blanket of nostalgia. This is lovely, but this is really solid. So, what was your first impression when you played it? When you popped it in, not expecting much, right? $20 game. Hey, it's a game. Right?
Oh, well, here's the thing, though. Capcom is my favorite game developer, like full stop.
Okay.
And again, huge fan of Gargoyle's Quest to begin with. I think, and you know, like you, big magazine consumer, right? So I kind of knew what to expect. It still blew me away. I think this might be a hot take. I'm not sure. I think this is the best looking Super Nintendo game. I think it's got the best sprite art on the console.
Gorgeous. It's what I loved about it and we can just jump right into it and we can just pinball everywhere. That's totally fine. What I really struck me at first was the sprite work. That was the first thing that hit me immediately. Like, wow, they're just the right size. They're not too big. 'Cause I've played Super Nintendo games, especially late Super Nintendo games, where they were really feeling themselves with sprite sizes, where sprites would be too big. Kind of like Ren and Stimpy. I remember that distinctly. The sprites are too big, so your character is unwieldy, and it's not terribly fun to navigate. It was a perfect size for the arena they're in. The control is just simple enough to be able to figure it out almost immediately without having much trouble. I love the idea of hovering with a tap, not even to hold the button to hover. That may be a little thing. It controls great. I learned real quick. The goal is to get as close to your enemy and shoot. Get close. Don't try to range them because you can only shoot one projectile at a time, if I remember correctly. But I remember the game looks beautiful. Like some of those bosses are genuinely terrifying. There are some I was like, ooh, this is cool and gross and goopy.
Even that very first level, right? With that like zombie dragon that you fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What an open.
Yes. And the, phenomenal music.
The music is insanely good.
I put this kind of on par with like Symphony of the Night because it's also a similar structure. It's not a full on like Metroidvania / search action game because there's separate levels. Yeah. But you do return to the levels as you gain new abilities and have more to explore.
Yep. I would love to see this on like the DS or the 3DS. I think this would have been a great game because that was the one thing that was a bit of a drag for me, which it is going back and forth to that inventory screen over and over again. And the game does a pretty good job of making it. I would love to just have that on a second screen.
Oh, sure.
Put that inventory screen on the second screen. That is like next level for me. The music is fantastic. Very impressive. This is one of those games where I don't know if we can quite call it a hidden gem, but it's one of those that doesn't get talked about a lot, which is I'm assuming why you wanted to talk about it here.
Yes, the whole series for me is a hidden gem. This is Capcom actually, I think it was the beginning of last year, they did a survey, like a really big survey where it was like what I was waiting for. They were like, hey, if we were gonna like remake or remaster something, what should we remake or remaster? And then it was like, if we brought something back, what should we bring back? And Gargoyle's Quest / Demon's Crest is always at the top of my list. Yeah, it's like this. It's Onimusha. It's Dino Crisis. Maximo is like kind of close to the top of that list. Breath of Fire. Like Capcom has so many amazing legacy franchises that have been dormant for so long. But this is the top of the list for me. But it's also like the one where I'm like, it's never going to happen. Like, you know, I would be happy. I would be over the moon if they just gave me like a collection that's playable on modern systems of all 3 games. And I'd be happy with that. Like, you know, I think that they should have done a new game ages ago. It's never going to happen, but I want more people to experience these games because I think they're incredible. But I think the only one that really got traction was Gargoyle's Quest. And I think it's because of when it came out on the Game Boy. But then, like I said, Gargoyle's Quest 2, really late on the NES. Yep. I actually thought Demon's Crest was 95. So I thought it was later than this. But yeah, I probably didn't pick it up until like, you know, it was probably like late 95 or something like that.
Yeah, this was November 94.
Okay, so yeah, still
really late. And also talk about being born under a bad sign. There's a lot of good games coming out for the Super Nintendo in late 94, early 95.
94 was kind of a big year.
Yeah, that was a biggie. That's one of those where a lot of podcasts or shows will be like, you know, best year ever. Like 94, 95 are usually in those conversations. So which can explain why it was a bit of a commercial failure. It did not do very well. According to Wikipedia, it says that Capcom rejected a potential port to the Game Boy Advance by a studio that would later become Renegade Kid for this reason. A studio evidently that was based in Austin. I don't know what they did.
I remember the name Renegade Kid. Oh, wait. I do know Renegade Kid. They like Jules Watcham, the head of that studio, used to shop at my store. And they did Dementium the Ward.
Yep, there you go. I love talking to you. You know all the Dementium the Ward, Dementium 2.
Yeah.
And I'm just reading these. I have no idea what any of this madness is.
Yeah,
but
Dementium was actually a pretty big hit on the DS. Jules used to work at Acclaim Austin. And so he was a regular at our store back in the Acclaim days. And then after Acclaim shut down, we kind of lost track of him for a little bit. The last time that I saw him was actually at like E3 2004.
Okay.
No. I take that back. I think it was actually it was the 2004. And I think he had started his own studio at that point, but then I kind of lost track of him. And then I kind of found him on Twitter again years later. And by that point, like Dementium had already come out and stuff like that. But yeah,
that's crazy.
Londoner, like, you know, by way of Austin, but cool guy. and yeah, so man, yeah, they would have done right by a Demon's Crest port. That's a shame.
Yeah, they were Iguana, which was Acclaim.
Yes.
So
Yeah. I always go by Acclaim Austin because I think it's easier for people to parts. And they were Acclaim Austin right before the end.
It's funny, on your show in the most recent episode, I believe you all were talking about how it's funny, people of our generation remember who made the games. And Mike Falk was saying, I don't remember who makes the games. I don't know who makes my video games. And we're like, oh yeah, Iguana Entertainment and this guy. And for some reason, that really hit home with me when I was listening to that last night or 2 nights ago. I was like, oh man, he's right. He's right. For some reason, gamers of a certain vintage or age, we remember where those come from. That's so funny.
Yeah, it goes back, I think, to a lot to the magazine stuff, right? And he did mention that on our show because, like, you know, you would EGM, right? It'd be like, oh, you know, here's the developer, here's the publisher, and then like in the preview, it's like, oh, well, so and so, you know, is known for this, and it's like, oh, right, and you would start to like connect those dots and realize, like, you know, who made the games that you liked. And like I said, Capcom is my all-timer. Like, even though as much of a fan of Final Fantasy and RPGs as I am, Capcom has been consistently like on the mark for me, you know, with just incredible series after incredible series. I do think the name change probably hurt this one also.
Sure. Because you probably have people who knew the Nintendo game and the Game Boy game, but all of a sudden Demon's Crest comes out, and, you know, it's just, you have that disconnect. And I wonder why that happened. There's no information as to why, at least on the wiki. But I'm curious. It'd be interesting to know why, because they use the Firebrand as the name of the red dragon demon rather that you're using. And I remember that name from the other games, so that stays consistent, but for some reason the title doesn't, which is super weird and strange.
Also, you know, I mean, people listening to this probably are aware, but it is, you know, a spin-off of the Ghosts and Goblins franchise as well.
Yep. Yep. The spirit, because Firebrand is that little demon dude that just punished me mercilessly whenever I played Ghosts and Goblins at my cousin's house, and said, "Oh wow, I thought I was good at games until I can't get past the first level of this one." Great, thanks, game. So this is a joy to play. It's got a cool story. It's got an actual lore going on. Did the other two have any sort of loose lore for Super Nintendo Game Boy times?
No, actually, the first two games are pseudo RPGs.
Wow. Okay.
So the first two games actually have overworlds, a la like Dragon Quest, where you're walking around and talking to people and buying items. Oh, wow. I think the first game actually has like, you can search around the ground for stuff. But then when you would get into like a random battle, it would turn into a side-scrolling action level, and it is like a tiny little level. But you would get into random fights on the overworld, and then you would go through like a little platformy bit where you're like killing a X number of enemies, and then you would leave, and then you would go into a dungeon, and then the dungeon would be full-on exploration and hovering around and fighting enemies like you're doing in this one.
Okay, so almost like a oh man, what's it? Like an ActRaiser almost, kind of. A little
bit, yeah. It was like a really cool like RPG hybrid back when those weren't very prevalent. Yeah,
no, that sounds really cool. That's actually really, really interesting and good. But yeah, it's got a cool story. The Phalanx has stolen the crests, the 6 magical stones that represent the fire, earth, water, air, time, and heaven. And then the Crest of Infinity will appear, which will give infinite power to whoever wields it. Our pal, the red demon, has everything, and then he gets snuck up from behind in a really cool cinematic, and a really cool in-engine cinematic. Gets snuck up from behind and loses all but a fragment of the fire, and it's your quest to get everything back. Again, I think the enemies look fantastic. The sprite work is great. I really wish. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, please.
I just had a thought. So I did not get to play this for this episode. I'm going solely on nostalgia and memory. But the more that we're talking about this game, the more I'm like, Iga totally was inspired by Demon's Crest when he made Symphony of the Night, wasn't he? Because there's like a lot of parallel here.
He might have been. Because there are a lot of parallels. Absolutely. And again, especially in the enemy design and the sprite design. I remember the one in particular is there's this goopy eye monster that comes up from the bottom, and then he kind of chases you up this corridor, and at the very top it starts spitting its eyeballs at you. I'm like, this is so fun. As somebody who enjoys that sort of thing, like just appreciates it. There's that one enemy that's called the Crawler, I think. And I like at the end, they give you all the names of the bad guys, which I always love when games do that.
Oh, me too.
I love when they do that. Personalize them for me. So when I go back through, I know what they are. There's one called the Crawler, which is like has 85 rows of teeth and slithering around on the ground, all disgusting. Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. For sure. And again, it controls well too. And there's a lot of opportunities for expressive play. You have the different crests that you receive will give you different forms. So the Crest of Water allows you to navigate the water. There's a flying one that allows you to fly more easily. Really just a lot of fun. Do you remember, I'm sure you beat it as a kid, because it sounds like you had it as a kid.
Yes.
And you took care of it, yeah.
I beat it, but I was not able to 100% it. And I remember trying really hard to get everything. And there was just like a couple things. I remember scouring previous levels looking for those last couple things and just could not find them.
I got through maybe a third of it or so until I got the feel for it, and then I just watched like a let's play of it.
There you go.
There are some of those are really oddly hidden. There's one of the life expanding items, power-ups that expand your life bar. It's hidden in a bell, and you have to headbutt a bell in like one of the last dungeons to make this thing just pop out of the bell. Like, how are you ever going to discover that on your own? There's no chance. There's no chance.
Oh, well, I mean, once I got, because that's the earth form. That's his headbutt. Like, he headbutts into the background.
Which is cool.
And I was like, but so like once I got that power, it's like, well, I'm headbutting everything.
Everything. Headbutt it all. Why wouldn't you?
And that's another thing, too, is just like, Yeah, having all those forms with like all of the bespoke sprites and animations, right? Like, it's a impressive display for late era Super Nintendo.
Yeah, it's really good. I would say it looks better than, Super Castlevania was early as Super Nintendo, but when you look, I'm thinking about Gothic games of that style. There weren't a ton on Super Nintendo, more on Genesis probably than Super Nintendo. But I would put it up against, the greats of that genre. I think it's a really solidly made game. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other things in this game. I'm always struck by how you said this is a bargain bin game. You paid $20 for it back in 1995-ish.
Yes.
Just based on your extensive knowledge of video games, how much do you think this is worth now loose on price charting? What do you think?
Let's see, because I haven't been paying attention to like post-COVID bubble, because I know things went crazy there for a while.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hazard a guess at 350.
Okay, 350 loose. Okay, so if you say 350 loose, how much you think complete?
5.
Okay, so the loose price right now, according to price charting, which of course is an aggregate, is $140.
Oh, not bad. See, I'm still thinking of like the last time I was really paying attention, where everything was like just redonkulous.
Insanity. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it peaked in 2023-ish at around about 200. And
that's considering how late in the generation and how poorly it sold, I'm actually surprised.
Yeah.
Because I used to own, I didn't know what I had at the time. I bought it at Game Fellas. It was a complete copy. It's one of my secret shames. Hagane for Super Nintendo. Just you're there, Bill. Look up Hagane for Hagane. Complete for Super Nintendo and hurt me, please.
Hagane.
Hagane.
Oh, Hagane. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Hagane. The Final Conflict. Let's see. That it for Super Nintendo. Loose 1,098. Yeah, about $1,100 loose.
Mine was complete, Bill. Can you tell me the complete price?
You can just bump that right up to if it's complete $2,800, my friend.
Oh gosh,
$2,800. Hagane, the Final Conflict. I don't mean to hurt you on these shows, but that's insane.
Good game. Good game.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
At least it's good. Yeah, it's wow. That is insanity. I can't imagine. That's like a down payment on a car. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. One of the things I love to do, and I try to do this beforehand, is look through the manual. I'm a big fan of video game manuals. If I collected things, I would collect video game manuals. That is the thing I would do.
Was this a color one? I love a color manual.
It is a color one. Yeah, it's a color one. It has the story. Here, I can throw this into the chat so you can enjoy as well.
I think I have the manual for my copy of it, but my Super Nintendo games are packed up right now.
Oh, they're packed up. Oh, okay. That's fine.
I just never like finished unpacking from when I moved into this house 3 years ago.
That's totally fair. You'll never unpack fully. And eventually you'll just throw those things away.
Right.
It's a pretty decent. I just got done playing again, doing an episode on Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball, and that manual is immaculate. It's an amazing. I just did a TikTok on it. It's a phenomenal manual. This one is pretty solid. Has all your powers. Has the story. A couple of screenshots. Nothing too outrageous, which is why
not as much art as I would like.
Yes, that's the problem. There's not as much art. There is a thing called Trio the Pagos Gaming Shops. Did you remember that from the game when you actually could go and do that little headbutting mini game where you'd wager, whatever amount of money, and then you'd have to like headbutt the skulls that come out of the wall in a certain amount of time?
Yes, I do remember that. Yes.
So that's a surprise that Nintendo allowed a somewhat kind of sort of gaming shop in their video game. That's always fun. Nothing too crazy in this manual. This one's a disappointment. So that's why I usually do that ahead of time, so I don't bring it up. But if I swear, I actually have I have the original box to my copy of Final Fantasy III for Super Nintendo. It's and it's in perfect condition. It was in a plastic bag for 3 decades or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
Actually, mine is too, because it's the one that's my copy that my mom bought for me.
Yeah.
So that one, like when I got new games, like I kept the plastic, I kept all of the material in there. So yeah, that one is still like that.
Very, very cool. Yeah, man, I think this is one of those games. It was released so it's been released and it was playable. Well, now, of course, it's playable on NSO, but it was also released on the different Wii shops. So it was on the Wii, on the 3DS shop, and on the Wii shop. So hopefully people were able to play it that way. But right now it's available on NSO, and you can just play it if you have an NSO. I totally think it's worth playing.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny because I also own the Japanese version simply because I thought, so my store, we imported games,
right?
And I saw that there was this time where like one of our distributors just had like, oh, hey, we've got like some Super Famicom games. Do y'all want them? And I was looking at the list and I was like, is that like the sequel to Demon's Crest? So I picked it up because it's called Demon's Blazon. And I was like, huh. And so then I get it, like it ships to us. I buy it from the store. And I'm like, oh no, it's just Demon's Crest. But now, I have the Japanese version also.
Oh, yeah, okay. See here, Demon's Blazon. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just Demon's Crest. Well, that's cool. At least that's neat that you have both, and I'm sure you still have that somewhere in the archives.
Yeah,
knocking around for sure. Let's see. Yeah, Virtual Console, 3DS, all that fun stuff. The first mention of this game in Nintendo Power, which was again where I first saw it, was issue 67. They gave it the same issue as Earthworm Jim. So it's the Earthworm Jim cover issue of Nintendo Power. And what I like about this is that I'm gonna read the first opening crawl here. Which is they don't do reviews in Nintendo Power. They never reviewed. They would write copy that was kind of marketing, kind of not. And I think this is a good example. But even though they put this got like 16 pages of coverage. Like this got.
Oh.
Now, mind you, it's Capcom, so I'm sure that had a lot to do with that. But must have been a slow month. It says Firebrand soars on the Super NES. A tale of great battle and revenge. Is that really say battle? Yeah, it does. A tale of great battle and revenge is told at the beginning of Capcom's Demon's Crest. Whatever the story, Demon's Crest is cool. It's got great graphics, a Capcom standard, good play control, and lasting interest because of all the hidden areas and items. A player doesn't have to complete every single area to finish the game. It may be a little confusing in that respect, but still a cool game. So that is the official entry review in Nintendo Power.
Oh man, I love mid-90s magazine writing.
I love it.
Because it was still like they were so much aiming it at like the kid and teen demographic.
Yep.
Like for a while there I was trying to collect every issue of EGM, and I've got a good chunk of EGM. And I love to read EGM from like 93 to like 96 because like everything is all caps and like triple exclamation marks.
Yes, lots of ellipses and it's all that stuff that your literature teacher would be really upset if you busted out into a term paper.
Yeah, but they were so excited.
Oh, totally. This was the December 94 issue, which means they're probably that's interesting. This was December 94. Huh. Okay, so this was not quite the holiday stuff yet because they were always, I guess, a month behind.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
At least, right? So in this issue, at volume 67, since how much more can you talk about Demon's Crest? Demon's Crest led off on the reviews. There was Earthworm Jim Part 2. Oh, Earthworm Jim Part 2.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, Earthworm Jim Part 2.
Was like
okay.
93.
Yeah, okay. Then we have Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel, which I know nothing about. I don't know what that is. I've never heard of such a senseless thing.
It sure is a mascot platformer, Bill.
I was going to say, it sounds like a humdinger of a mascot platformer. And then we move on to Super Return of the Jedi, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And then Uniracers, which has been featured on this podcast before, also great. Mm-hmm. Love that game. And then Tin Star. Remember Tin Star?
I do remember Tin Star. I never played it.
Yeah.
That's the one, isn't it, where you're like part of it you're playing with the controller and part of it you're playing with the Super Scope?
Is that right? Let me see. Let me go. Internet Archive is not good about moving forward and back because the pages never line up. Tin Star, let's see. Yeah, yes, that is the one. You're right. You do some of it with a Super Scope, and some of it is played elsewhere.
I don't know why my brain works like this.
I don't know either. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty incredible how I can bring up mostly anything. There were still Nintendo games coming out during this era, which was odd. Wario's Woods for the NES was the NES game feature that month. And then for Game Boy, there's still Game Boy games getting put out as well. Samurai Showdown, Wario Blast, Casino Fun Pack. Huh. Samurai Showdown on the Game Boy. I can't imagine.
I rented Samurai Showdown on the Game Boy.
Why?
Wait,
do such a thing?
No, never mind. I take that back. I think I must have played it at our store when we got it traded in. But I did own Mortal Kombat 1 for Game Boy.
I can't imagine. I can't.
It's awful.
I can't.
But it was the only way I could get Mortal Kombat.
I love that. Oh, wait, hang on a second. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm jumping all over the place here, but again, that's what it is. Sorry. Wario's Woods is correct. They also have, let me back up real quick. So Samurai Showdown, Wario Blast is a Bomberman clone.
Yes.
That's interesting. How are you on Bomberman? I never got into Bomberman. I never did
either. Part of it is that I played the original Bomberman and I thought it was terrible because like the original NES Bomberman is nothing like what you are thinking of Bomberman in your head right now. If you go look at original NES Bomberman, it has no, other than the fact that you're it's the same overhead thing with the bombs, but like the aesthetic and everything. And I don't know if that was because of they changed the character for the American release. They would do that a lot with sprites back then. But I hated it. And I never, so, Bomberman was getting more and more popular and I just ignored it. It's like, no, I hate Bomberman. And then I think I finally I played it with like some coworkers at Game Fellas because they were really high on Bomberman. I was like, okay, no, that's pretty fun. But like, I never, it was never a thing for me.
Now, the choicest piece of this magazine, again, I'm just going to talk about the magazine for the next few minutes just to fill out the episode.
Yeah, fine. I love going
going down rabbit holes is a 4-page spread. Yes, a 4-page feature on the Virtual Boy. Do you remember what the code name of the Virtual Boy was before it was known as the Virtual Boy?
That I don't actually, because I like the Virtual Boy kind of like came and went so quickly because I feel that like it was like I think it was not in like like preview status very long before it was here. So no, I don't remember. So
this one has it as code name VR32. VR32. Okay. That's the code name.
That vaguely rings a bell, but it's definitely not as evocative as like Project Reality or Project Dolphin or
No, it's pretty lame. I was just curious if somewhere in there, but they have this system based on these screenshots looks amazing. I can imagine reading this as a 15-year-old, 14-year-old being like, this is it. Nintendo's got this in the bag. And we all know what happened with the Virtual Boy. Have you ever had your head in a Virtual Boy, or even?
Yeah, once at Target, like a display kiosk. I remember playing Red Alarm for about 3 minutes and being like, "That's enough of that."
Yeah, that's enough of that. My best friend Joey had a Virtual Boy. He owned one.
Yeah,
and so I've had my head in a Virtual Boy a number of times, and I could never quite just not have a headache after 10 minutes. And I could never, and playing tennis and Red Alert and all these other things, I could never quite get my head around the virtual reality piece of it.
I never understood why they went with red for the color. That just seemed like the most like offensive to the eyes choice they could have made.
It's like the highest contrast. Like no one I looked at a lot of websites back in the day that thought they were really cool and would do like red text on black background. Never worked. It was never good ever. So I don't know who thought that was going to be. They're talking about how expected retail price of $200 will be affordable to everyone. The only remotely comparable products are VR goggles for PCs that cost between $500 to $1,000 and still require an expensive computer to run the software. That's amazing.
Honestly, I'm surprised that there was even like computer, VR goggles at that time for that low of a price. I
highly doubt that.
Era.
That sounds cheap, honestly.
Yeah,
I can't.
That's what VR ended up coming out at. When they brought it back. Now like that. That's what they were running.
Right. Exactly. Awesome, man. Well, that I think does it. I think we fully mined the depths. So as I always ask on Tales from the Bargain Bin, I think this is an obvious answer based on your experience and my experience, but Demon's Crest for the Super Nintendo, are we taking it home or are we putting it back in the bin?
Oh, Bill, we're taking it home twice. We're buying the American version. We're buying the Japanese version. Yes, and we're telling all of our friends about it because more people need to know about it. I think it's the best looking game on the system, but I also think it's just one of the best games on the Super Nintendo. And I do actually think it's kind of a hidden gem because I think a lot of people missed it. I'm glad that it is available on Nintendo Switch Online. And if you have that service and you have not played this game yet, go do that right after you finish this podcast.
Yeah, don't be like me and just say, "Oh, that's neat," and then completely forget about it. It's definitely worth your time. You can probably roll through it in like a few hours. It's a great length. Definitely recommend that as well. Before we leave, Julian, why don't you tell the folks, if they don't know already, what you do at Stage Select and how they can get a hold of you?
Yes, I am one of the hosts of the Stage Select video game variety show, which is what we are. I always say that the elevator pitch is that we're like the Muppet Show, but for video games. We have just a crazy menagerie of colorful characters that work, quote unquote, for the show. Skits, sketches, weird shenanigans. The only guarantee on an episode of the Stage Select is that you don't know what you're going to get. But other than that, we're going to talk about video games. That is the only guarantee is that we will talk about video games in some form or fashion. But other than that, sometimes we go to space. Sometimes a really aggressive game show host appears. We have an elder god living in our bathroom. It's a whole thing. I was going to mention the elder god in the bathroom. Yeah, that's a thing that occurs. You have a bunch of. It's a really fun. You never know what you're going to get, and I love the randomness of it. But I also love the craft of what you're doing as well. Like you guys are really doing really good work on there. It's one of those shows that seems kind of effortless, but I know it requires a lot of effort because it's a great balance. And it's still, if you remember the old Nerds Without Pants, it still has that kind of vibe, that conversational vibe. But all of a sudden, the janitor shows up and starts just muttering about something. It's really funny what you guys allow yourselves to do on that show. So I highly recommend everyone check it out. Another fun point is that me and my co-host Justin Ham, we do not let each other know what is planned, what we have planned for each episode. So that's part of the fun. Is Justin occasionally gets that twinkle of mischief in his eye, and I'm like, "You're gonna press a button right now, aren't you?" And then he's like, "I did a thing," and so he presses a button, and then it goes into a new thing. And it may be the only time that ever happens. It might be a new recurring bit. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. I don't know the last time we used the 311 button. I don't recall if that's been busted out.
We try not to remind him about the 311 button, Bill.
Okay, good. Okay. Because it is a little triggering. I'm just gonna say. I get it. But I may have to whisper that in his ear. Hey, Justin, you do have a 311 button. We need more facts.
He's really big about Scozster these days.
Scozster was that hit me as an old ska fan from back in the day who was fully in that scene. I appreciated that for sure. And if you appreciate this show, then I highly recommend you listen to all the other episodes that are out there on offer on A Gamer Looks at 40 and Tales from the Bargain Bin. If you go to agamerlooksat4040.com, there's a section for full series playlists. You can check out the full series of this show, of this side show, including, and also all the Final Fantasy episodes, all the Legend of Zelda episodes, and the Earthbound episodes, all in one place. So you can just binge from one section, so you don't have to cruise throughout the feed. You can just get it all in one place. And other than that, TikTok and Blue Sky are where I mainly hang my hat social media-wise. Justin, thank you again for Justin. Ha! I said Justin. Julian, thank you so much for joining me once again. And until next time, just be kind to yourselves and each other.